From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something that you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio. We've got about 20 minutes or so, just Neal and myself, and then we'll be joined by Associated Press Mississippi writer David Brandt. He's in town today. He will grace the Clark Ford Studio with his presence
coming.
here.
I'm surprised the AP can come here.
I mean, you can't vote, but apparently they can enter the dwelling.
It's amazing. Wait till I tell the people in New York that David Brandt came here.
I mean, he might get like pay docked or something for hanging out with the
suspension.
Yeah, hanging out with this riffraff of
to ask him about that.
A crew today.
God knows we don't need to be voting with our agenda. I'd have ULM number
one. I'm a little surprised we can share cups of coffee and things with him.
Ole Miss number 2. I'd probably
Northwestern 3.
I'd put Northwestern 3. Probably go back to ULM at 4. Looks like I'd have to put Arkansas at 5 because of Campbell. I mean, it'd be a.
You wouldn't dare rank ULL no matter what.
No, never. I would never rank ULL.
Yeah.
Or Mississippi State. No. Who's Arkansas's big rival? Do they have one?
That's been a contentious. They got a boot. They lose sometimes. We've got A&M a little bit. I'd
have to take Missouri
because they play
LSU.
A&M in neutral site games now.
That would kind of eliminate them. So Missouri, LSU, and Texas A&M could never be ranked.
You still rank the Tide.
Oh, you're damn right. Roll damn Tide.
You got to rank the Tide.
You're damn right.
Ole Miss, Alabama, 6 o'clock. We'll talk a little about Matt Luke's press conference yesterday. He and the coordinators meeting with the media, normal schedule.
It was interesting.
This week, of course. I'll tell you the podcast brought to you every
interesting
single
press
day
conference yesterday
by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. You're coming to town this weekend, stop by for the lunch specials, the ribs, and take advantage of all the different tailgating options, whether it be a couple pounds of pulled pork, up to 3 slabs of ribs. You get quart-size sides as well there at the Oxford Exxon. So be ready to let them help you out with your tailgate catering this weekend. They can take care of that. Also, 49-cent bottomless refills when you buy the Stadium Cup there at the Oxford Exxon. And again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. Call the number. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what new Ford you are looking for, and he'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's that simple. It's right to the bottom line. There's no haggling. It's just a great deal. You get great service, delivery options, everything you want. I tell you all the time, Corey wants to be your car guy. He wants to be your truck guy. If you don't know what that means, ask him. The answer might inspire you. Tell Corey at the end of your deal that you heard about Clark Ford on the podcast. You mention any of our family of podcasts. I'm taping a beer garden later today. I assume we're taping a soft verbal tomorrow. Jay and Gabe and I will tape a Greatest Pod in the South on Thursday. So lots of podcasts coming your way. Mention any of them. You'll save $500 on the bottom line. Clark Ford and Amory, 662-257-1900.
Also been telling you for a while, if you haven't yet, give Blue Delta Jeans a chance. I was able to hang out with some of those guys yesterday. They delivered my most recent pair. We always talk about the denim. I got the Holland and Sherry yesterday in kind of an off navy color. They are twice as light as the denim. It's a really, really nice cotton-like material. They are fantastic. I haven't worn them for a long period of time yet, but tried them on last night. So don't sleep on the Holland and Sherry as much as we've been talking about the denim as time has passed.
I think I'm going over there later today.
Are you?
I think so.
Am I inspiring you?
Yeah.
Yeah. They sponsor our trivia question every Thursday night at Funky's. Great guys, great local company as well, doing big things. They've got a great product. So again, give them a chance. Many of you have taken advantage of that. It's been a really good partnership for everybody involved so far.
You do wonder why they're
helping you guys
partner with us.
I know, it's amazing. Tater Log Podcast
of all the people they could partner with.
Yeah.
Although Laura told me my legs are looking better lately.
Really?
Yeah.
You got a compliment from someone not on a computer screen.
I got a compliment. Well, now don't make fun of virtual high fives. Don't. Virtual high
How
fives.
many? Okay, what is your ratio of giving versus getting virtual high fives?
Today, I got 5 and gave 1.
Why'd you give one?
Because it's one of the people that gives it to me all the time, and I think it's a female person who's battling like cancer and stuff. And so
You know that?
Yeah.
How?
On their profile.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, what's on your profile?
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't see you giving a lot away on your.
No, mine's just. I'm just a dude in Oxford.
That's it.
Riding a bike.
I mean, you don't want to spill all your situations out on your Peloton profile.
I'd really rather not.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
All right. Fair enough.
I mean,
so the same people give you high fives a lot of times.
A lot of times, because the people that follow, you can follow or be followed.
Why would you follow someone? What's the purpose?
The only time I'll follow people is if I see that they're consistently in the same little range with me.
Okay.
And I'll follow them because if I do an on-demand ride, I'll see what rides they rode because those rides might fit what I'm trying to do.
Okay. There is a little pragmatic nature to it. Then it's not simply just It's not an online Facebook friend type deal.
No. I mean, no.
I mean, I feel like y'all are gonna have like a group hang at some point or something. It's kind of.
I'd hang out with some Peloton people.
Why? You don't know them.
I don't know anybody.
Might be dweebs in real life. Probably are dweebs in real life.
What would make you say that?
Just a hunch. I don't know.
Are you saying I'm a dweeb?
I know, but you would say it about yourself, so I can let you say it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a dweeb.
Actually, really, dweeb doesn't fit.
I'm a nerd.
I don't know why I said dweeb. Nobody says dweeb anymore. For some reason, I said dweeb.
I would say I'm kind of a nerd in real life.
Most people are nerds in real life to some extent. I mean,
like, I don't have really any interest in being cool. Cool doesn't interest me at all.
Dweeb definition: boring, studious, or socially inept person. I mean, the last part of this, maybe I did hit something here with Mr. McCready.
I don't think I'm boring.
No, you're actually not socially inept. You just hate social situations. There's a difference. You're fine once you get in them.
I don't think I'm boring.
You do need a certain range or percentage of knowing the group. You're much more comfortable if you know at least 40% of a group versus you're in a room, and that's most people, obviously, but versus being in a room where you really don't know anyone and it's a whole, hey, get to know me, let me share to have a conversation situation.
Yeah. There's probably some truth to that. I prefer...
You're not one to work a room, per se.
Not really.
No.
I mean, I could.
Well, yeah.
I actually think if I ever had wanted to be a politician, I actually think I probably could have been a fairly good one.
Really?
Yeah. But no, that's not really my thing. It's not really a weakness as much as it's not I don't have a desire to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat like, I mean, and I think we both know him pretty well. You know him better than me. It's kind of like Andy Kennedy. He never loved the rooms, but he was fantastic once he got in them. He had to kind of flip that switch and go, okay, we're here. Yeah. Let's move.
Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, so, he's an interesting case study because I think he much prefers more of an intimate setting.
Right.
And likes his privacy.
So you said that yesterday was interesting. Why do you believe yesterday was interesting?
Oh, God. It's your fault for asking this question.
I phrased it in a certain way for a reason. I'm giving you open.
I thought Matt Luke was very frank.
He was.
If you paid attention and learned to... With Matt, you don't really even have to read between the lines. But there is, like there is with anyone, a certain degree of code.
Mm-hmm.
Matt did not want to talk about how Ole Miss beat Alabama in the past. He just didn't want to go there.
He made a point to basically answer two questions the exact same way, saying that the players were in situations were different from last year when they got beat 66-3, and the situations and players were completely different from 14 and 15 when they won games and had no bearing on Saturday whatsoever.
Yeah, he wasn't going to give them bulletin board, but he also wasn't going to get into a bunch of false stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They've got bigger issues. And when he got questions asked about the defense, Matt did not take this cop-out answer that is readily provided for him by people in the media to, tale of two halves, right? Let's not do that. You can't have a first half like that. It can't happen. And that's basically what you heard from Matt Luke, is it can't happen. They used a lot of code words like focus, prepared, it's on me. My guess, it's been an enlightening 48 hours inside that building. I get people that ask me a lot, do you expect staff changes at the end of the year? I'm not speaking specifically of any particular staff member. Yes, I expect staff changes at the end of the year. Has nothing to do, this is the part two. I'm going to defend Matt Luke a little here. This whole it's Matt Luke's dream job thing, I get it. He loves Ole Miss. Ashley loves Ole Miss. Matty Lee of the Clarion Ledger did a nice story on Ashley Luke. I think it was published yesterday.
Correct.
They love Ole Miss. Cool. Nothing in the world wrong with that. That's great. Is Matt happy to be coaching at Ole Miss? Yes. But I think Matt wants to be a head coach. I think Matt's been groomed in his mind to be a head coach. And at any job, look, Matt's not stupid. We've been around Matt a long time. I've never thought this guy's not very bright. In a field where sometimes I cover people that I think this guy's not very bright. I've never thought that about him. He knows you're in scoreboard business. You got to win games. He's not going to let his opportunity at any place, dream job or otherwise, go by the wayside with people that he doesn't think are best fit to work on his staff. And yes, I think there will be change at the end of the year.
He only hired 2 guys on this staff, 3 maybe.
Bicknell, Sumrall,
and Clark. That's it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was trying to think about Roach, whether Roach was,
I think
Roach was a Freeze hire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think there will be change. And I think that you don't have to be a genius to figure out that if the defense does not improve and improve dramatically, there will be significant change on that side of the ball. Now, when you say that as a media member, people who are in those positions, nobody likes to have their job called into question. Nobody. It's a human nature thing. If John Tallman, our boss, said today in an interview, yeah, that rebelgrove.com site, I don't know. It's got to have some certain growth, and it's got to do some things better, obviously. I mean, we have a standard, and if they don't meet that standard, well, then obviously we find change. Am I going to like that? No, I'm not going to like that. I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to hear the words. I'm not going to be angry at the person who asked the question. It is what it is. Yet I sensed there was not anger. I don't know what the pushback, not even pushback, just a little. There's a lot of media games at Ole Miss that are played, that Ole Miss has allowed to fester for decades, and they get interesting in these dynamics when things aren't going well. And things on that side of the ball did not go well Saturday.
David's probably going to join us for the next 5 minutes. I want to finish this segment with something, though, because I was thinking about this, and somebody yesterday asked me this question. And I hadn't really thought about it. I think you and I mentioned it just in passing the other day, but I really hadn't put a lot of deep thought into this. Yeah, there's no doubt. Saturday, the first half was terrible defensively. Second half was not good either. They're 2-0.
Yeah.
They have a chance to win 6-7 games this year.
Sure.
Fine. What we've said the whole time. I'm not
Sure.
changing any predictions off the first 2 weeks.
No.
They're really, really good offensively. And I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying this bad. I'm just kind of throwing this out into the universe as a pondering thing. Okay. 14 and 15, and even into 16 a little bit, changed the curve for Ole Miss football. We started grading on playoffs, access bowls, competing in the SEC West.
Yeah.
This is a team on probation. This is a team that has a lot of recruiting issues as far as the current roster. Had the Access Bowl situation not happened, had the Freeze era not been a success, had this been a program that was just 6-7, 6-7, 8, 6-7, 5, 6-7, are we lauding things differently? Or are we still grading? Are we still discussing things on a higher level from a grading standpoint versus maybe where they were? Because this team is still on the same path that, frankly, historically, Ole Miss has averaged to kind of been on. And there's no doubt that there is a more critical nature to it for some reason.
I have 2 thoughts.
Okay.
One, had that game last Saturday, been against Alabama,
yeah, we're
not having this conversation. We would have said, well, it's kind of what we expected. We knew that they weren't very good on defense.
Yeah.
That was Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
That's Alabama rolling up 7,000 yards against Ole Miss. We're not saying anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, frankly, if Alabama rolls up 6-28 this coming Saturday, are you going to be stunned, surprised? I'm not. I'll be like, it happens.
You got 2 weeks to LSU, moving on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Next. But yes, the curve's different. As a Cub fan, September the 11th, the Cubs have a 1-game lead in the National League Central. 10 years ago, I'd be pumped.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed. Expectations change. They do. It's life.
Yeah, I'm not saying you want lower expectations.
No.
I just found it kind of interesting that
You can't
there's
say
a
on
shift.
one hand that you as a program want to be nationally competitive. Get to a place where you're nationally competitive, and then turn around later and go, come on, man. I mean, you're holding us to a really high standard. No, you created that standard. And the truth is, the people who know the program, who know the ins and outs, what Hugh Freeze absolutely proved at Ole Miss is that you can compete nationally. Because Hugh Freeze did not cheat the way he is accused of cheating. The end. I'm not getting into it with all the Mississippi State people, MSU Twitter. I'm just ignoring you. Stop. Dan Mullen proved it at Mississippi State. They weren't cheating at the level that the big-time boys are cheating in the SEC. They don't have the money to do it. Neither does Ole Miss. Dan Mullen took Mississippi State to Tuscaloosa, 10-0, ranked number 1 in the country. He did. 10-0, number 1 in the country, absolutely proved that you can win the national championship at Mississippi State. Hugh Freeze took Ole Miss to back-to-back Access Bowls, proving that you absolutely can win the national championship
And not
at Ole
with
Miss.
peak efficiency.
Not even close.
Which means did not reach the program ceiling.
So, yes, Ole Miss said for a long time that it wanted to be nationally competitive. It wanted to be nationally relevant. It got to that place, and now that is the standard, even when the program is where it is. But this team, there's probation and stuff like that. We will judge a game against a Southern Illinois differently than we're going to judge a game against Auburn.
Okay.
I think the fact
curve is more the opponent than the team.
I think the fact that it was Southern Illinois on Saturday is what's caused this.
Yeah, because frankly, everybody gave them really high marks against Texas Tech, a bottom-feeding Big 12 team.
Yes.
Yeah, good game. Yeah,
solid.
20-point win.
And they gave up almost 500 yards of offense that day, and really nobody said much other than, hey, you bent but didn't break. On Saturday in the first half, they bent and broke. The tackling was terrible. People were out of position. They looked unprepared. And then people get testy on the questions, and I could go into a lot of the semantics of Ole Miss's Monday media press conference, which is something that I've never seen anywhere else, where you've got people from the radio crew that are in there asking questions, referring to the program as we, wearing Ole Miss gear. You have one of the more prominent media members on the beat wearing Ole Miss gear. And then you have other people asking different questions. It has to be disconcerting to people like Wesley McGriff who don't have a tremendous amount of media experience. It has to be confusing.
Never really thought about it like that.
When you look at it from his perspective, his spot in the room, you've got Harry Harrison, part of the radio crew, in there asking questions. Harry's not writing anything. It's not even. I guess I could say it's for background. That's what he would probably say. I don't have a problem with it. That's Harry is allowed access into there. He asks questions. It's fine. You have a very established site that's been there for a long time. That for the longest time was the dominant site. That their public face is wearing an Ole Miss shirt, an Ole Miss cap, asking questions. And then you have traditional media that are asking traditional media questions. It's bound to be disconcerting, and so you as a subject getting asked those questions, I'm sure there's a tendency to get a little confused. Why are these guys not like those guys? Those guys, I'm getting friendly treatment here, makes me feel like these guys are being searching for bad, when in reality, the people in the traditional media, for the record, I asked no questions, you asked no questions yesterday. The people in the traditional media are just doing their job. The other people are kind of searching for, be honest, I think they're kind of searching for spin, favorable spin, and they think that's what they're supposed to do. And if you're the subject up there, that's bound to be somewhat confusing. Let the record show, because I'm sure this will form a message board post, there's no indictment here. I'm not saying anybody's right or anybody's wrong. I mean, I have an opinion, but it's just my opinion. You're free to have your opinion. But if you're Wesley McGriff up there after Saturday, Monday probably felt weird. I thought his answers were short. I thought they were crisp. I didn't think he said a whole lot because, quite frankly, what can he say? He's in the coaching business. I say this all the time. You've heard me say this. Coaches are in the scoreboard business. The score on Saturday, when the game begins, will be 0-0. Alabama will open the game with 0 rushing yards and 0 passing yards. They will. That's how the game will start. Zeros. Yards will be accumulated. They will be kept meticulously in statistics. And at the end of the game, none of the people in that room, not the ones wearing the Ole Miss gear, not the ones calling the game, or not the ones like you and me who will be just covering the game, none of those people will have contributed to anything that results to change the numbers that started at 0. None of us. You're in the scoreboard business. You're in the statistic business. The numbers grade you. So there's really the people that are dissecting what Wesley McGriff did or did not say yesterday. I get it. It's part of our job. Wesley McGriff, the product that he will put on the field on Saturday will speak for itself.
There's nothing we can say or do or anyone else can say or do that would change the perception of the Ole Miss offense from being very, very elite or vice versa, anything that would have repaired or helped people's feelings about the first half defensively against Southern Illinois.
And
Period.
on the flip side, Phil Longo yesterday spoke for about 9 minutes, gave very detailed answers, has become incredibly, incredibly good actually in those settings, and is very clearly positioning himself to be a head coach one day.
Yeah, no doubt.
Take a break in the podcast today. The podcast is also brought to you by Locker Stockers. They take the hassle out of stocking your locker or suite for this game day season. The customer places the order, and they handle purchase and delivery of the locker to the locker or suite prior to game day. That works for Vaught Hemingway Stadium, the Pavilion, or Swayze Field when the seasons get here. So lock in that preseason price. Still another day, one more day before the home opener against Southern Illinois. So you should call today, 662-586-1487 or info@lockerstockers.com. The podcast also brought to you by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, DeSoto County, and Chattanooga. 30 years old this year, one of the oldest mortgage companies in the Southeast, leader in condo financing in Oxford and the float down option. So give them a call at 662-234-2704 or JLOWE, JLOWE at communitymtg.com. Also, if you are heading into town this weekend for the game and you need to stock up on your liquor, Oxford Wine and Spirit's a great place to do that. Located on College Hill Road, right next to Lost Pizza. Neil and I are in there very, very often. They got all the Cathead products, and they're trying to help you, the podcast listener. So if you spend $150 or more in there, 5% off wine, 10% off liquor when you tell them about the podcast being how you heard about the store. So Oxford Wine and Spirits, again, on College Hill Road next to Lost Pizza. And then finally, the podcast brought to you in part by Tyson Drugs, TysonDrugs.com. They have a great app as well, and they're located in downtown Holly Springs. 662-252-2321 is the phone number. They deliver wherever you are, and they're also now in Oxford as well with G&M Pharmacy on South Lamar, and they deliver in the Oxford area. So TysonDrugs.com. Now back to the show.
Yes, I can get you a coaster. David Brandt of the Associated Press, kind enough to act. I mean, I'm surprised they even let him in. You just use trying to find a coaster for David because the Associated Press comes in. They need a coaster.
How about I use one of those Cubs books?
How about use that? Just there you go.
All right, that'll work.
Does the AP know you're here? Are they okay with you hanging out here at the Clark Ford Studios?
I would rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
We're lovely. We're lovely. We were just discussing the dynamics of the Ole Miss Monday press conference, which is, I think.
What's it like these days? I haven't seen one in a couple weeks.
Well, we were just talking about how from the perspective of the coach that's standing up there, and I don't mean a Matt Luke, who I think understands the politics in the room better than he gets credit for. I actually think Matt's done a phenomenal job of handling media, better than I ever dreamed he would do. I don't know why. I had no real expectations. He surpassed them. We were talking about Wesley McGriff, who obviously is under fire. There's no question about it. The product that was on the field on Saturday was unacceptable from a fan base perspective, from a administrative perspective, I would imagine. You can have the debate about talent, you can have the debate about whatever, but when you give up essentially 400 yards of offense and 38 points in the first half to Southern Illinois, there's going to be fire and brimstone. It is what it is. I was thinking from his perspective, you're in that room and you've got Harry Harrison in there, part of the radio crew,
sure,
asking questions, which I assume are for background. You've got, let's be honest, you've got a site that is wearing school clothes and asking kind of favorable spin questions, and then you have the rest of the media that I think are asking more of the traditional media questions, and if what's coming from that side is normal to you, the other side feels negative. And so it becomes a little, not defensive, but testy. I don't know that happens at a lot of other places. It's just an observation. As I told Chase, this is going to come across like I'm bitching about it. I'm not at all. It's going to come across like I'm criticizing it, and I'm not criticizing it. I'm actually trying to see it from their perspective. If you feel like, hey, I'm kind of under attack here, and I'm sure he does, that dichotomy, there's nothing in between. It's either these guys are for me and these guys are against me, or
it would almost make it difficult, I would think, as a coach in a setting like that, because, if you're somebody like McGriff and you're under fire and you go into a press conference where there's going to be a lot of tough questions, you kind of steel yourself for that, you know, and you get ready for it. You get your answers kind of prepared in your head because generally the questions that are going to come. I mean, everything. But in an Ole Miss press conference, and this happens other places too. In fact, the dynamic, I do both schools. Mississippi State is very similar in this, in that, some questions are more favorable and easier, and then some are more pointed and tougher. And so instead of being able to prepare for one or the other, you've got to bounce back and forth, sometimes multiple times in a press conference, from sort of a softball question to harder, more pointed questions. And I think sometimes it gets you off your rhythm a little bit to bounce back and forth, because there's always a dynamic in just about, I would imagine, even covering pro teams. There's certain, and the ones I've covered briefly, there's certain reporters who are known for asking tougher questions than others. That wasn't invented at Ole Miss, but I do think that maybe the dichotomy is a little more severe there.
It's funny. I went into that press conference because I had written some critical things, thinking I need to ask some questions. And then I thought, and I know it sounds like a cop-out, but it's really serious. What is there to ask?
Right.
It's one of those deals where
if you're just going to make somebody angry, or you know what I mean, like sometimes, and you've done this a long time, and I have too. I mean, it's about picking your spots sometimes.
Well, and it's really, you're right. And I thought he's probably waiting for me to ask something. And at the same time, I look at it and I think, you're in the scoreboard business. Like I just told Chase a minute ago, not to belabor the point for the podcast listener, but to catch you up. It sounds elementary, but it's true, and I think sometimes we forget this. On Saturday, when they play Alabama, when the game kicks off, all jokes aside, it will be 0-0. The stat sheet will be a collection of zeros. Numbers will be accumulated, and we won't participate in any of that accumulation. It'll be the product on the field will speak for itself. And in many ways, there's nothing that Wesley McGriff or anyone else over there can say about what happened against Southern Illinois anymore. You can do code words. Well, focus. We got to be focused out of the gate. Got to be whatever. I don't even like. Parrish offered, and I like Parrish a lot, picked up on that, and you could tell Parrish was like, I'm going to write about focus.
Right.
And so I'm going to ask detailed questions about what specifically do you mean when you say focus? And the answer was, well, we just mean really kind of getting focused.
Right. When you really dig into that, there's not much there. You know what I mean? It's just a code word for like, we got to play better, at the end of the day. Like, and I do think there's something to be said, for getting guys up ready to play, all that. I think that, but, when guys are multiple times running wide open from SIU with nobody within 15 yards of them, I mean, I think you throw out words like focus and heart and things like that when you just don't know what else to say, or when you know there's a deficiency of talent and you have nothing else really to say. Because
I asked the one question of Matt the other day, and the answer was a really interesting one. Matt didn't throw anybody under the bus, but he acknowledged that it was a good question. If you buy into the theory, and I don't, that the second half was a lot different than the first, why did it take until halftime to make whatever adjustments that you were going to make? If you're telling the truth, because the what was told was we didn't change any calls. So you waited till halftime to discuss focus?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, because any good defensive coordinator coaching staff, this isn't just on Wesley.
It's on anybody.
You make adjustments drive to drive. Yeah, from play to play. I mean, you see what's going on.
Phil Longo was asked this question yesterday, and his answer was really interesting, and I thought, boy, he didn't mean to throw Wesley McGriff under the bus. But Phil Longo was asked a question about what you'll do against Alabama, and he goes, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but the answer is I don't really know until I see what they do with us, which is his way of saying, look, first series or so, we're going to get a feel for what their plan is, and we'll adjust.
Right.
Not at halftime.
No, that's way too late.
We'll adjust now.
And that's been Longo's standard response. That's what he does all the time. I mean, he has a plan of attack for the first couple series. He's like, I think we can attack them here and here. He does film study. But then the opposing team has their idea of how they're going to attack. And then Phil says, oh, okay, they're bringing the safeties up. They're doing this. They're, blitzing a ton, whatever. We'll adjust. And so it's a constant game of, you can call it checkers or chess, or, depending on how complicated it is.
Some are playing checkers and some are playing chess.
Right. It's a couple different games going on.
Yeah.
But
some are playing that Uno game.
Go fish.
Go fish.
But seriously, I mean, from drive to drive, adjustments are being made all the time. You watch those games last night on Monday night. You could see those coaches going back and forth like, all right, this is working, this is not. And that's what good coaches do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you're always trying to kind of have a leg up on the other coaching staff.
That's what was interesting to me, was that the Ole Miss defensive thing was, we just changed our focus. Took 38 points. If that's the truth, that's not the best answer in the world. So it took 38 points and 380-something or whatever it was, 370-something yards for you to change your focus?
It means that you're that emotionally fragile that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you can't, get them together on the sideline and be like, what is going on? You know what I mean?
After the second drive.
Right, if it truly is a lack of execution, you get them on the sidelines, you'd be like, look, this has to stop right now. And halftime's too late. I mean, if that happens against Alabama, it might be 108-0.
108. So you would lay the 19. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if they play like SIU, yes.
Yeah, so to me, going back to the press conference thing, I just looked at it and thought to myself, this is game 3. It's obviously Alabama. They're the top-ranked team in the country. They're the standard bearer for all of college football. You're going to be tested. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that Alabama's offensive coaches will study the film.
And attack the linebackers.
And they're going to go after linebackers.
Right.
And if you're Wesley McGriff and John Summerall and the people over there, you know it's coming. Right? I mean, it's
no, we're not reinventing. They know what's happening.
They're going to find 17. What number's Hibbler? 17, 43, and they're going to play action. They're going to
play action. They're going to make them cover in space.
They're going to get, if Bing Dukes is out there, they're going to get him in space. If Zacharian Baker's out there as fast as possible, you're going to get him in space. It's coming. And so if it happens again, the question is, at some point the question has to be asked, and I think someone will ask it. I've asked it before and got testy. Do you just not have enough talent? Are there just not enough players there? Do you just not have enough players of the right talent to make this work? Which is, in my opinion, a huge part of the answer.
Oh, it's giant. I understand because it is the answer. It's the total answer. To me, it's like 95% of the answer.
Yeah.
The problem is
Close.
it's September 11th right now. If you're Matt Luke and you're Wesley McGriff, you're trying to build confidence in your defense. So what are you going to say? You know what I mean? So you throw silly things out like poise and
platitudes.
Right. You throw things out because you're trying to build confidence. And it's frustrating for everybody involved, you, me, them, because everybody knows the answer. We're all like, at least I like to think, moderately intelligent human beings, and so we know what's going on here, but you can't, because you're trying to, because I do think there's something to be said for confidence, for playing a little above your head in games, and they're trying to keep those guys confident through these really tough games. And so it's frustrating, but I do understand where the coaches are coming from, that they can't really say that, even though we all know it's true.
Yeah, because I went back and watched it. Believe it or not, I went back and watched.
You poor soul.
Southern Illinois. I watched the first half. There's a lot of talk about eyes and stuff, and yes, there was plenty of places where the linebackers or defensive backs
just bit super hard on stuff.
Yeah, weren't in the right place. I mean, there's a couple of bites, Bing Dukes, Hibbler, where you're like, oh my God, that's just basic football 101. Like there was a 4th and 1, I think, Chase, where they faked a dive into the line of scrimmage right off the A gap, and the tight end just slipped behind, and he's so open that, and actually the ball's
I remember that play.
The ball's underthrown, and the tight end,
he was so open it didn't matter.
He had to fall to catch it. A good throw, and he's still running. He's like somewhere in
Greenbow, Alabama.
He's just still running right now. But yeah, that was the linebacker just sold out to stop the run, and well, there he goes. And then there were plays like the last touchdown of the first half where it was just a little out route, and the cornerback just misses him. He just misses him. And then the receiver outruns the safety and you say
easily. And
you say there's the lack of speed. There's the lack of that play wasn't on Wesley McGriff.
I agree.
I mean, you know what I mean?
That was a really slow developing play. That was really weird. I remember that play.
And it was just an out route. They're trying to get out of bounds, and he catches the ball, and the corner just misses him and hands him an inside lane, and he starts running, and you can almost see in his mind, because everybody thinks while they're doing it, oh my God, they're not going to catch me.
Right.
And then now he's going to the end zone, and he ends up, they call him out at the half-yard line, and then the replay showed that it was a touchdown. That wasn't on coaching. That had nothing to do with coaching.
There were 4 red shirts around that person.
Just didn't make the play. And that's again. And look, nothing against. I'm sure that he's a fine young man, and his parents are very proud of him. But that's not an Alabama wide receiver right there. That's not an LSU wide receiver. It's a Southern Illinois wide receiver.
No, that's fair.
And so it's an issue, and it's why I think what's coming in the next few weeks, if this defense can't dramatically improve, and frankly, I don't know how it can. If they can't dramatically improve, what's coming is this final moment where we as the media are told, people said, I hope you guys are going to ask tough questions. Okay, well, the only tough question I can really think of is the one I just said. Do you simply not have enough talent? And if not, why not?
Right. I think that's, again, just like coaches have code words, I think fans have code words too when they're like, ask the tough questions. I mean, and I understand that they're frustrated. That's what makes fans awesome and fans. I mean, that's why we have jobs. But there's nothing, it's frustrating for them, and then it becomes frustrating for us because there's nothing to ask. We all know, you know what I mean? That you can do some smoke and mirrors, you can cover things up. That's why sometimes mid-majors can compete with high majors, because you do some smoke and mirrors, you do some things they're not expecting, you can mask a couple positions and cover them up. But at some point, there's enough film on you, the talent's too good, like in Alabama, Texas A&M, that you can't do that anymore. And then, like you said, you kind of come to that moment of, dawning comprehension that, it's just the talent's not there.
And then I think where it is frustrating for fans is this team on the other side of the ball
is elite.
They're elite.
They're a top 10 team nationally.
Yeah. And so I got I'm doing my mailbag every Wednesday, and one of my questions was, if Ole Miss had an average defense, just average,
10-win team probably.
Yeah, and that was my answer too. And then on the other side, they said if Ole Miss just had an average offense with this defense, what would they be? And I thought
2-10.
I said 2.
Houston Nuts last year.
I thought 2, maybe 3 wins,
Yeah.
and that's what you're talking about. I mean, they clearly beat. They would have beaten, probably would have beaten Texas Tech. I think maybe they would have been in trouble Saturday against. They probably would have lost to Southern Illinois. ULM would be a losable game.
Yeah, you can maybe beat Kent State.
You'd beat Kent, and then after that it would be tough because Arkansas, Vandy would be. You'd have a shot, but it wouldn't be a great shot.
No.
And so I think that's the frustration is that they look out on the field and they see this offense that is very, very good, very well put together.
Pretty well coached at this point. I think Longo's done a good job.
Has anybody erased doubts faster at the coordinator level than what Phil Longo's done in a year and a half?
It's been impressive because he's come in and done exactly what people said he could do. You know what I mean? Because at the point, Ole Miss has thrown the ball well for years, but the problem was they didn't run it particularly well. But, Phil Longo comes in, suddenly Jordan Wilkins turns into a pretty good running back. And then this year, Scotty Phillips has been great through 2 games. You know what I mean? He's taken, and I don't know if, Scotty Phillips is truly an awesome back or not, but for 2 games, he's looked really good, and the spaces are opening up in the blocking, and obviously what Phil Longo is doing is causing problems for other teams. And I think that, all this stuff like, that Sam Houston State stuff doesn't work in the SEC. It does.
Yeah,
apparently it does.
Not only that, but they lost a 5-star quarterback to an injury in October. I mean, Shea Patterson was a 5-star quarterback. He is the starting quarterback at Michigan. Everybody can do whatever they want. He is the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan, so there is some degree of talent there. And they lost Shea Patterson and really not only didn't take a step back, appeared to have taken a step forward with Jordan Ta'amu.
No question. And like I said, it's a the players have confidence in him. Longo kind of, you really, and again, when things are rolling well, all that stuff, but the adjustments he makes and the different ways he attacks defense, it's been really impressive. I mean, his, no matter what happens with the staff, I think Phil Longo will have a job somewhere for years to come.
Yes, I don't think unemployment is in his near future.
Right.
Barring some scandal. And
what do you mean?
Well,
what would you mean?
The climate in our country is such now that these you just never know.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
We take a break from the show to tell you that this podcast is brought to you by Robert Gambrell and Gambrell and Associates. Robert knows that many of the people listening to this podcast will never need a bankruptcy attorney or a Social Security disability attorney. However, many of you may be interested in reviewing your financial situation to consider asset protection. This is a part of what a good bankruptcy attorney does. And also, many of you have friends and or relatives that get into difficult financial situations. Gambrell and Associates helps many people work through their times of hardship, whether that results in filing a bankruptcy petition or working to avoid a bankruptcy filing. Others are primarily worried about their credit scores. For those people, many times Gambrell and Associates refer their clients to Brian McLaurin, another advertiser on this podcast. Sometimes people find the easiest way to rebuild credit is similar to what the Cubs did. Tear it down, start over. This can be done by filing for relief under Chapter 7 to get a fresh start. Whatever your needs are, you, your relatives, or friends can get a free consultation for 1 hour or more to help make your decision on what is best for you. Check out Robert Gambrell on avvo.com, superlawyers.com, or give him a call, 662-281-8800. This podcast is also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, look no further than Grenada Nissan, located just off Interstate 55 in Grenada, Mississippi. Grenada Nissan has a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles, great lease deals as well. Gene and Sandy have been with the website, the podcast, a long time. They're great people, great service, great product. You will love doing business with the people at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. The podcast also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX legacy realty agent. Harry's been in Oxford more than 4 decades. No one knows the residential and condo market in Oxford better than Harry. Go to his site. He'll prove it to you. It's harryalexander.com. Click on the Properties and Neighborhoods tab. Filter through by what you are looking for, and then send him an email. It's HA at harryalexander.com. And Rebel Nation, 2018 is the year of the fan. Ole Miss Athletics wants to showcase your stories and recognize you, the Ole Miss fan base. Exciting prizes and experiences throughout the year will be featured on omyearofthefan.com and updated often, so be sure to visit omyearofthefan.com. Now back to the podcast.
All right. I want to get your thoughts on some different things. I know you haven't covered Alabama yet. I know you've probably seen a little of them.
I have a little.
They haven't really played anybody all that particularly good yet. They destroyed Louisville. They destroyed Arkansas State. They are coming to Oxford somewhere around a 20-point favorite. That's give or take a point or two wherever you are. Is there a scenario in your mind where A, Ole Miss could win the game, and then B, is there a scenario where they could cover that line?
Nothing's impossible, but this is fairly impossible.
Yes.
I mean, I think that, again, Ole Miss has an elite offense, and I've said this since the beginning of the year. Ole Miss is kind of who we thought they would be at this point. Oh, yeah. And Ole Miss is going to have to win a couple games 58-49. I mean, something dumb. I mean, and that's the way Ole Miss wins. They just somehow get Alabama back on their heels and start throwing touchdowns and hitting long shots, get a turnover or two somewhere. Vernon Dasher has a pick. Something happens. They make a mistake. You get them on their heels, and then things get weird. I mean, that's happened in college football before. Again, yeah. Alabama's different because they're very disciplined, but, like the Quincy Adebayo play, back in the day, the ball off the helmet, things get weird. Ole Miss kind of has a tendency. That's one of the things that has made them such a fascinating team to cover over the years. A lot of games are 4-hour heart attacks. Like anything could happen. A meteorite could hit in the middle of the game. I mean, like I was telling Maddie Lee, who's the new Clarion Ledger writer, like I've covered a lot of things. I've covered the NFC Championship, Saints Vikings. I've covered the Olympics. I've covered alpine skiing. I've rode a ski lift up into the mountains to cover stuff. You will never cover anything as dumb as Ole Miss football. I mean, like, anything can happen.
She was down there talking about, God, this thing is just going on, and we were all like, "Yeah, welcome to the beat, honey."
Right. Well, it was just like, it was funny. Matt Luke gets into the press conference after the Southern Illinois game, and I guess his family was up at the top or something, and you just hear somebody go, "Woohoo!" and I just was sitting next to Brian Rippey, and I go, "Woohoo, indeed." Woohoo. And, I mean, like after that game, and you saw Matt Luke sit down like, oh my gosh. But that's just been like, Ole Miss has just been bizarre. And I mean, good and bad. It's been, we've covered Sugar Bowls. We've covered, just absolute disasters.
Yes.
I've covered Jacksonville State. I mean, like I come up to Oxford on a Saturday from Jackson. I pack a lunch. I make sure I have emergency gear. I'm like, who knows what's going to happen? I may be up there for 4 days after the stadium collapses. Like it's amazing. And so daytime fireworks, the stadium could be set on fire. I'm telling you, they shot them off the other day. I started getting the shakes. I was looking around. I was expecting half the stadium to like go dark, like back in the day. It was.
Yeah, they do that at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They turn the kind of the lights down or whatever, and it's not fair to do this to them because it's a completely new administration, and they.
Oh yeah,
they appear to be competent right. At the very least, and. Every time they do it, I think, man, I wouldn't do that.
It's amazing how many
those things are liable not to come back on.
It's amazing people still remember a lot. I get on Twitter that my blog was called Daytime Fireworks for like a year and a half because that was in like the wild, wild west of blogs at the Clarion Ledger. Rusty Hampton, my boss, was just like, have a blog. I was like, what should I call it? He's like, whatever you want. And so, like the day after the Daytime Fireworks happened, I called it that. And, it was one of those things where like everybody under 40 years old basically got the joke, and everybody over 40 was like, "Why is this called this?" And I was like, "I'll tell you when you're older," But anyway, that's lived on. And so anytime it's a bright blue sky and fireworks are shooting in the air, I could still see that transformer blowing over on the just, bzzz, and half the stadium going dark, and then Darren McFadden running for 7,000 yards.
Oh, it's just every time I think about your blog and stuff when you were on the Ole Miss, I think on the Ole Miss beat, I always think about the Andy Kennedy story where he brings you out to half court at Tad Smith and he goes, "What's that?"
Right. I was just sitting there hacking away and he goes, "Hey, David." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Come here." He brings me out to half court, and he points up. He goes, "You see?" And this is the Tad pad. Obviously, he looks up at the ceiling. He goes, "You see that little blue speck up there?" And I was like, "Where?" He goes, "There." I was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of see it." He goes, "That's the sky." He goes, "You wonder why we have like flooding in here? I can see the sky." And I was just like, "Wow, that seems like an issue." I can. If you could tell the weather from inside Tad Pad by looking up through the ceiling.
That's potentially a problem.
Right.
All right, so we talked about Ole Miss some. You've seen Mississippi State some too. I was telling Chase, I was in downtown scenic New Albany on Saturday for a while. Campbell had to take the ACT, and I drove her over there, and I killed 4 hours. And one of the hours that I killed.
I was wondering what you were doing over there. The ACT is a 4-hour thing.
It is a 4.5-hour exercise.
Right.
So I killed the first hour and 15 minutes or so of Mississippi State and Kansas State at Tallahatchie Gourmet. Had a beer. Did not have a second beer. Was asked, "Do you want it?" I said, "I do, but I probably shouldn't." Anyway.
It's impressive self-control.
I watched that game. I was really – and I know Kansas State's not good. I get it. Texas Tech's not good. Kansas State's not good. Outside of Oklahoma, I'm not sure anybody in that league is particularly good. I still was really impressed. What I was impressed with State was 2 games into the season, they have a very clear identity. They are going to line up, and they are going to pound it at you. And defensively, that front seven's really good, very physical, chippy, play with the attitude, can get you psychologically out of your game, all of that stuff. And I thought, they're not going to win the league because they can't throw it well enough, but they're going to be a handful.
Oh, they're a tough, nasty team. That front seven on the defense, and then I don't think their offensive line gets enough credit either. That's a pretty good offensive line.
It's really good.
Yeah, and Kylan Hill's really good. That's one thing that you see. I think the difference between Moorhead and Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was very partial to veterans, and he would have played Aries Williams. And Aries Williams is a solid back, but I think Kylan Hill could be a special back. And so, I think Moorhead has identified that, and now Kylan Hill is starting and ran for 211 yards. And I just think, this State team is really, really could be special.
I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I've had this conversation with Jay Tate a few times on the Greatest Pod in the South, and you were kind enough to come and do that with us in Jackson. And Jay's super high on this Auburn team that he covers. And I get it. They're very good.
Yeah.
But I've told Jay, I think Mississippi State's going to be undefeated when Auburn comes to Starkville.
Very good chance.
And I think State's going to beat them.
I think they can in Starkville. I think that's a good game. I think those teams are pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Louisiana Lafayette.
At home this weekend, then at Kentucky, and then Florida at home.
And Kentucky will be a challenge because Stoops has done a really good job. They're going to. We're going to talk about Florida and Mullen and that dynamic in a minute. But I think they're unbeaten when Auburn comes to town, and State will be in the top 10 by then.
Yeah, they'll be right around there.
They'd be even higher. Well, they wouldn't be if I were a voter because there's no way that I could put my biases aside. ULM would be 1. And then Ole Miss would be 2, and State would be 400 because I can't.
There's some things I just can't allow.
Right, I understand. So it's a good thing. So I just do it on I have my own ballot every week on Sunday and 10 weekend thoughts. I think State's number 13 in mine right now. I think they'll be in the top 10. That's going to be crazy, and I think they're going to win the game. And then they get really interesting because they still got to go to Alabama. And if you can't throw, Alabama takes one-dimensional offenses and just shuts them down, just stops them. And so they've got to figure out a way to get that dimension. So that's my question. Is there a scenario where, from what you've seen, whether it's Fitzgerald or Thompson or some combination thereof, they can accumulate or assemble enough of a passing game to have some semblance of balance against a really good team?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. But you talked about identity. I don't think State wants to get too far away from their identity in any game. You know what I mean? You go into Alabama, you've got to have a couple ways to try to stretch them vertically, at least occasionally, soften them up just a little bit, because Alabama will, like you said, one-dimensional offenses
They'll take the dimension away.
Right. They will take the dimension away and make you beat them the other way. But you remember last year, and the game was in Starkville. That makes it a little different. But, State just ran the ball, and they were in that game right until the very end. Remember, Jalen Hurts made some really good plays in the fourth quarter.
I remember it well.
So I don't think we have to say that State's got to throw for 350 yards or there's no chance. There's just got to be you got to have a few big plays, and then you do what you do well. You run the ball, and you hope your strength is good enough to match up with their strength. Because I don't think you just go in there suddenly and are running a Ole Miss style, 4 or 5 wide offense.
What's Dan Mullen's return going to be like?
A couple people have asked me about this. I think it'll be mixed. As far there'll be some boos. I think there'll be some cheers. I think it'll be largely cheers.
Should be.
I think at this point. Well, I think a lot of people do appreciate what Dan Mullen did, obviously. I mean, there will probably be a statue of him and Dak Prescott in 20 years out in front of that stadium. I mean, what Dan Mullen did, what Dak Prescott did, they'll always be kind of linked. I mean, was special. I mean, they brought that program something different. But I think the wounds are still a little raw. You didn't just leave, but you left for a team in the SEC, that's coming to your place the coming year. So I think
they hold against him that he lost that last Egg Bowl.
Well, I think that's because they think he was looking ahead.
But they lost, and that's not why they lost the game. They lost the game because Fitzgerald broke his leg in the first quarter.
Right. I agree that was by far the largest thing. But a lot of people because you knew the rumors the whole time Mullen was there was that he was looking to get out.
Of course.
After year 3. He was
why I hired Jimmy Sexton.
Right. And so that was all college football fans, but I think especially because Starkville kind of gets dumped on a little bit just because it's Starkville. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a cow town, all that stuff, which honestly I don't think is true. I have a lot of fun in Starkville every time I go. But from a national perspective, it kind of gets, made fun of sometimes. And so I think people there are very sensitive about sometimes how Starkville is perceived, and the fact that Dan Mullen, obviously, his last 4 or 5 years, didn't really want to be there, didn't think the ceiling was high enough, I think doesn't sit well with some people. And so the fact that he left for Florida, again, they're appreciative of what he did, because what he did was obviously very good, but I don't think they felt that Dan Mullen was ever 100% in with Starkville and really kind of melded with that fan base. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, if you win, it doesn't matter, but it never felt like the love was reciprocal.
And I get that to a degree, but he was there almost 10 years.
Right, which is an eternity in college football.
It's a long time. He won at a level that no one had ever won there before.
And that's why people, again, it's not often that a random dude from New Hampshire can come down and become beloved in Starkville, Mississippi. But he won a lot of football games, and he is. And I think 10 years from now, he will be beloved there.
Yeah.
But I think the wounds just right now are just a little raw. So that's why I think it's going to be mixed.
And I think some of the people that are upset at him, they do that deal. Because I had a very intelligent engagement on Twitter, believe it or not.
No.
I know.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either, except I could prove it to you. But anyway, we said, well, I think it's just the way that he left. And I said, but he left the way that they all leave.
Yeah, I didn't think that was any better or worse than.
And his example was, well, he said, well, yeah, but don't you have to finish the season? And I said, okay, let's say you work at IBM, and Apple's coming after you. That's not a conversation that occurs in a day. Apple doesn't call you and you go home and say, so Melissa, I'm thinking about going to Apple. What do you think? Yeah, I think we should. Let's go. Done. No, it goes months. You maybe even fly out on a weekend when you're off, and you do it somewhat surreptitiously just to get the feel for things. And then Apple's going to want you to move to the San Jose, and so you go look at the schools in San Jose, and you
look at the $3 million homes.
Yeah, and you say, what could we do? Maybe you meet with the realtor. Maybe you look at some things. Does that mean that the entire time that you're doing that while you're still working at IBM, are you distracted? No more than anybody else is distracted. You're still doing your job. And if you believe that Dan Mullen didn't still focus on the games that he was coaching at Mississippi State, you don't understand coaches. He wanted to win those games. He needed to win those games. He was trying to play schools against other schools. And the more he won at Mississippi State, the more leverage he would have. And it was like, yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way. And it's that whole because you're so emotional about it, you can't see it from his perspective. To him, it was a job.
Well, and I agree. Sometimes we elevate college football to a point like these are all human beings. Like think of, like you said, the Apple IBM situation. If you were looking at a new job, like how would that affect your, sure, you're thinking about it sometimes, but you know your performance at your current job
Still
has
matters.
a lot to do with why you might get another job.
Right.
And so it all becomes, it's still important. And everybody, just generally speaking, lives life. It's not just jobs. Sometimes you have a personal thing going on, sometimes family, sometimes a parent's sick or something like that. There's all kinds of things that divide our distraction, or cause distractions. So, I mean, I don't think that issue of the fact that Florida might be calling was any more or less significant than anything else.
Yeah, I tried to have this conversation with my daughter yesterday. She was like, I'm just going to apply to one school. And I said, well, that's stupid. And she said, why? And I said, well, because life happens. You need to have a fallback. You need to have maybe 2 fallbacks. Apply to some schools that you visit.
Or you might see a school that you don't really know you like and you decide it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just – and she's like, well, what do you mean life happens? I said, okay, let's say that in April I die in a car crash. Now maybe you don't want to go off. Maybe you want to stay here. I guess I hadn't thought about that. Maybe your mom got cancer. Maybe something happened. Mom's okay, right? Think,
Right.
It's just, come on. So, yeah, it's that you're right. There are people involved. I mean, Dan Mullen went, I'm sure he and Megan over the last several years had multiple conversations.
Right. Where are the places we would go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which places would we?
With him, one of the big conversations that occurred, I know for an absolute fact, was what do we do about Tennessee? Do we go or not?
Right.
Do we go or not? And I don't really think he wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, just from reading between the lines and talking to people, I don't think, if he left Mississippi State, he wanted to go to what he felt was a slam dunk job.
Yeah.
And Florida, he felt was that. Tennessee, he was not so sure.
His work's cut out for him at Florida. You saw it on Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, it's just there's work to be done there, and there's not a lot of patience. You get a little more patience in Starkville.
Sometimes I think what happened to him on Saturdays, I told Chase this yesterday, I think it's a good thing. I think it showed the everyday fan, we have the potential to be an elite program, but we are not an elite program right now. This is a rebuild. This is not instantaneous. For Dan Mullen, I think the game in Starkville, and I do think they're going to lose, and I think they're going to lose somewhat handedly, is an opportunity for him in a classy way, if he can keep his emotions in check, to say, obviously, we wanted to win today, came here intending to win, trying to win, but I was a big part of what got built here. And congratulate Joe and all that stuff. But say, I was a big part of what got built here. I recruited that kid and that kid and that kid and that kid and that kid. And we changed the culture here, and it did not happen overnight. It took time, and this is what we're going to try to do at Florida and take it even to yet another level. I wish these guys nothing but the very best. I cheer for them every week, but the one we just played, blah, blah, blah. If he can do that the right way, he can turn that game into a recruiting tool for him at Florida.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I would record that and maybe pitch that to Dan Mullen right there. But yes, the
problem is that they get so emotional in those moments right after, and they come across as petty.
Yes, that has happened to Dan Mullen a time or two over the years. So, it's an emotional sport, and I'll be interested because I think Dan Mullen will be up for that game. I think they will get his best shot.
Sure.
But I think State's good, and especially at home, I don't see that ending well for Florida.
Any team just knocked your socks off so far where you've watched and said, oh, they're a lot better than I thought they were? And then on the flip side, any team that we're talking about being a competitor that you look at and you say, they're not as good as we thought?
Well, I mean, kind of an obvious one from the first week was, Miami looked bad.
Yeah.
That one. I didn't really think they were like a contender to be a national champion, but I expected that game to be good, and LSU just kind of walked all over him.
I watched that game, and I said, that's why Georgia fired him.
Yeah. Well, just because he had a tendency to lay an egg or two like that once in a while.
Just to kind of recede.
Right. Well, and just out of nowhere, just a game or two, what happened? It wouldn't surprise me if Miami's pretty good the rest. And, honestly, we've spent a lot of time, me talking to you and other things, kind of running, talking about Ed Orgeron and things like that. But LSU looks surprisingly competent on offense. I still think it's a work in progress. I'm not going to say they're like a national title contender, but
Can they win at Auburn?
I don't think so, but what do you think?
No, I don't think they win. I think Auburn wins and covers.
What's the line?
10?
Yeah.
I think Auburn, Mississippi State is going to be a really big national game.
Oh, I do too. That's the game for who decides, like, who's going to challenge Bama. Like, who's the real contender for Bama?
That's what I think so, too.
Right. And then that team goes on, and you play Bama, you see what happens.
The problem for both of those teams, Auburn and Mississippi State, is they have to go to Tuscaloosa.
Right.
If either one of those teams could win and then get Alabama at their place, it would be really interesting. Although,
but I think this year, though, even for Alabama, I think Alabama's good. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, I can't, they all run together at this point, but it was a year ago or maybe 2 years ago that Alabama was good, but they weren't quite as scary as they've been sometimes in the past. But this year, it feels like that Alabama team that's really good.
Well, see, I think they're really, really good because on offense, Tua Tagovailoa changes what
I agree.
He makes them so much more dynamic offensively.
Instead of having a game manager like your A.J. McCarron's back there, who was fine. He was a decent quarterback, but you have somebody right. You have somebody that can truly go out and make special plays.
Yeah, this isn't Sims or
even Jalen Hurts.
Even Jalen Hurts, exactly. Right. This is a playmaker at quarterback who can not only – and Jalen Hurts mostly beats you with his feet and his brain. This guy can beat you with his feet, his brain, but that left arm is big time.
Right.
And now, what's interesting about Alabama, and we'll learn a lot about them in the next 3 weeks, is people close to them, people that cover that program say, man, that secondary is a little shaky. They get Jordan Ta'amu. They still get Drew Lock. I mean, they have those games coming up quickly. Now, I think they're going to beat Ole Miss. I think they're going to beat Missouri. But can Ole Miss and Missouri put enough on film against them where a Jarrett Stidham can look at it and Auburn can say, hey, we can run it at you, and we can do that too, and or enough of that to that's where it gets interesting. Jay Tate says, and look, and people can say Jay's a homer, Jay's whatever, and I'm going to pick on him this week and call him a homer probably too. But what if he's right? I mean, Auburn's front seven is phenomenal. They always can run the ball. They're good up front. Stidham's at worst a serviceable quarterback. At best, he's an above-average quarterback.
I think he's an above-average quarterback most of the time.
If Auburn can do all of that, if Alabama's secondary gets exposed a bit by Ta'amu, by Locke, it could be interesting at the end of the year.
You know, another team that just popped in my head. You were talking about teams that look good, that surprised me. Texas A&M didn't look bad. The Jimbo train is coming. And they're going to be good sooner rather than later. I think already, but I think by October and November of this year, that's a difficult team to play.
Well, they're a top 5 recruiting team right now.
Right, and they're only going to get better.
Yeah.
By 2020, I think that's a monster.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm not usually a big fan of moral victories. We've joked a lot about the Houston Nut wasn't a 49-10 moral victory thing. You don't get moral victories in year 4, but you can get one in year 1.
You can.
And that year 1 moral victory for Jimbo last week, and Chase was right. He talked about how you got to sustain it because it can be a one-off.
Sure.
It didn't feel like a one-off. No. And we'll find out because they've got some interesting games, but they also have the ability because they get ULM this week. And ULM's, if you're a student at ULM right now, you have got to be thinking about final exams. So they're not going to be focused. And then you get Arkansas, who's not good. They have a chance to build some momentum.
Yeah.
A&M does. A&M's got a chance to be – they're not going to win the league. They've got a chance and
be an 8 or 9 win team and be really
a spoiler
for a lot of teams.
They could be a spoiler.
Absolutely.
So that's what gets interesting. Yeah, with them. And I agree with you about Jimbo. I think it's one of the things that the reason that the pressure is really on Ed Orgeron and Baton Rouge over the next few weeks is they just got a glimpse of what Jimbo's going to be, and that's who LSU wanted.
Right. Well, and LSU, you've got to do better than being the 4th team in the West. You know what I mean?
You got to be no lower than number 2. To make people, you have to be no lower than number 2 to make people happy.
You've got to be competing with Alabama every year, especially while Nick Saban is there. But right now in the pecking order, it's Nick Saban and then Gus Malzahn and then probably Jimbo and then, Joe Moorhead. I mean, State's probably better right now, obviously. I don't know. I think they've got to play down in Baton Rouge this year, so that'll be a good game. But that's important. I mean, they didn't hire Ed Orgeron to be middle of the pack in the West. That was always my sort of issue with the hire. I thought Orgeron with that talent would be okay, but you just got rid of a guy that was okay to above average, Les Miles. You
won a national championship.
Right, exactly.
Played for another one.
I just didn't understand, why Ed Orgeron was going to build on that.
Yeah. Well, David, thanks so much for the visit, for the time. We appreciate it.
It was fun. Thanks for letting me in.
We'll be back tomorrow with another Oxford Exxon podcast. We're going to have Ryan Brown on the show at some point later in the week. I don't want to overpromise. Jeffrey Wright will be here on Thursday. And, of course, we'll be taping at Funky's. We'll tape our Friday show Thursday night at Funky's, 5:30. Drink specials, pizza specials, all sorts of stuff. Come out, visit us. Chase will take pictures and autographs and all of that. So until then, take care.